Welcome to a slightly different video. Today I just wanted to sit down with you guys and give you a massive thank you to everybody that has followed me, subscribed, and just followed my journey here on YouTube. I started YouTube just over a year ago, and we've just done it. We've passed the 100,000 subscriber mark, the first big hurdle of becoming a YouTuber, and you know, I couldn't have done it without you guys. I really am so grateful for all your support. I am over the moon that Alec and I have, you know, kind of hit that mark so quickly. It's overwhelming to see all the positivity coming from you guys, all the comments and messages, basically congratulating us on this journey and this really important 100,000 follower mark that we just hit. So massive thank you. And you know, I think I'll take the opportunity to just chat with you guys a little bit and kind of go through my history in short, basically kind of chronicling how I progressed here in Japan covering car culture. So I pretty much got going straight out of university back in 2001. I came here back to Japan after college in the UK and really wanted to do something different here in Japan and kind of hunt out what really was special to me at that time. I kept seeing this amazing culture that was kind of there but also hidden, and basically started off just, you know, going out and taking pictures, kind of like experimenting initially because of course I had no photography skill. I actually got going in journalism, you know, basically writing stories for Italian magazines initially. Elaborare was one of the first magazine that really kind of, you know, supported me and really went for stuff from Japan. Again, I was in a very interesting position. There weren't that many people in Japan at the time, kind of like hunting out content here. And basically with the words came the need to kind of have pictures as well, right? So I did try to collaborate with some photographers. I was never really satisfied. So one day I just did it. I picked up a camera, started experimenting, and you know, as I was out there hunting out cars and shops and trying to cover events, I started playing around with the camera and basically taught myself how to shoot. And it's really interesting because I started my journey in photography with a Sony camera. I believe it was a Cybershot F505V or something, like one of those weird kind of like swinging gizmos that basically the screen and built-in lens would kind of like swivel around. Wasn't the greatest of camera, I'll have to admit, in today's kind of like, you know, photography scope, but that's how I got going. I then jumped to Canon for 18 years, used Canon, and then when the time came for me to start doing video, I made the choice. Initially, you know, for the first year, we were filming everything on an iPhone. Alec was doing his B-roll with his Sony, and basically I just made the call and said, you know, why don't we just move everything over to Sony and kind of give a little bit more professional look to what we were filming. And so I am now running a Sony Alpha 7 IV. Basically, it has also become my still camera, so it's easily switchable between video mode and photography mode. And it allows me to go out there, kind of shoot pictures as well as video and swap very effortlessly between the two. That aside, you know, the journey has been a very long one, and it's been so much fun. It really does feel like the other day when I started going on you know, this professional path, you could call it. I didn't really, you know, expect it to take off as much as it did. Initially, I started hitting up magazines. This was, of course, back in the day, early 2000s. It was all about print. So a massive thank you to everybody back in the day that gave me a chance. And it just started so quick. Basically started supplying stories, features from events and, you know, shops and owner cars to magazines in the US, across Europe, and of course, you know, Italy, my home country, and kind of like chronicling what was happening here in Japan at the time. And you know, of course, kind of towards the end of the early 2000s, it's pretty much where print media started having trouble. The internet was becoming far more better developed. It was boasting with free content, and of course people transitioned to kind of finding whatever they were looking for in car culture, especially from Japan, you know, through the internet. So it didn't take long for magazines to die out. They all started, you know, one after the other. And in 2008 I was contacted by Electronic Arts, who at the time we're kind of thinking of creating a car culture blog to go along with the Need for Speed game that they, were so successful with, and kind of creating an online presence. So players that played the game would be able to kind of check in on the blog and kind of see what was happening in real life, kind of recreating, what was happening around the world in car culture and bringing that into the game. Of course, Need for Speed kind of developed this really cool feature about customizing cars and kind of, allowing people to kind of craft their own look. And I think people just wanted to recreate what they were seeing online. And it really made sense for this blog to exist. I'm not sure EA actually really fully understood it or the potential initially, but that blog, of course, was Speed Hunters, which is still active today. And, those first years working for Speed Hunters were absolutely amazing. We kind of cornered the market, bringing content from all over the world. We had some of the best contributors from, the main countries. And I got to work with some true professionals, meeting like-minded people around the world, traveling and, kind of getting to see not only car culture, but, we visited a lot of manufacturers, museums, very historic type places, racetracks, and just gatherings and events everywhere. And it just made me kind of expand that initial knowledge and passion and love that I had for cars initially, and just grow it further. That initial interest I've always had in cars was basically now fueled by so much more diversity when it came to car culture. I got to finally kind of understand and appreciate American car culture, something that I never really kind of looked into. I got to realize that there was such an immense scene here in Japan when it comes to American cars, covering Moon Eyes and all the custom culture that they kind of bring together here in Japan. And that kind of brought me, appreciating another great area of car culture. And again, growing, visiting events like Gatabil in Scandinavia, Norway, and Sweden. We got to see some amazing stuff up there, and kind of bringing home just how much people can push car culture in their own respective ways. We had these crazy builds that people would do by themselves in their garages solely for the pure fun of bringing out the car the following year at Gatabil, and just seeing that true passion and the diversity of cars that they were working on, again, further kind of brought me to understand and appreciate just how immense car culture can really be. Along the way, it really did push me to probably understand and kind of embrace that stepping out of the box approach. So I was pretty much in my comfort zone most of the time, but working with such a diverse professional base of photographers that Speed Hunters always had coming and going, it really pushed me to try different things and experiment. I remember going to events and meeting all these great contributors on Speed Hunters that I had seen online and meeting for the first time in different countries. We were swapping, lenses and trying different stuff, and kind of having little competitions with low shutter pans, and just, playing around and kind of trying to see what else we could do with photography. And I think that made me grow personally as a photographer, and of course a storyteller of, car culture. Basically, we were flying around the world, as I continue to do that to this day, and just kind of seeing how different countries, different cultures approach this passion that, everybody shares for cars, and how people capture this. Is it through video, is it through photography, what are they doing, how are they pushing the envelope? And as a photographer, you never stop learning. And it's been a great path, kind of bringing everything that I picked up into my professional career, doing a lot of shoots and a lot of work for manufacturers, and kind of like bringing all that knowledge right back here to Japan, and kind of pushing my own side of things here by myself. And with manufacturer work, I got to really meet and get to know some incredible people. These are actually people that were behind the cars that we as enthusiasts followed, working together closely with Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, and a lot of other brands from Europe like Pagani and Ferrari and Maserati. I really got to learn what kind of special person is behind cars that we kind of love, and just how much they take that passion and kind of turn it into almost an obsession. One of the greatest opportunities that I will never forget is being contacted by Discovery Japan. So the network here wanted to create a car show out of Japan, kind of showing the passion, the car culture, the customizations, and all the artisans that were kind of around that. You know, knowing that Japan was so special in this regard, we put this amazing show together called Retro Car Kings. It did so well in 2012 when it came out and aired in Japan and across Asia. I think it was the third most successful show funded by Discovery Japan, and it was, you know, across all the networks for a good 10 years. I'll never forget how many messages I got of people saying, you know, I just saw you on the Discovery Network or whatever other channels the show was broadcasted across. And it was a great experience. We got so close to getting picked up as a proper show that would run, but unfortunately changes in the way Discovery was going at the time didn't really make it possible. But to this day, not only did it serve as a great example of how what I did up until then could be transitioned into video. And it kind of left me with this idea for so many years, you know, when is the right time for me to kind of jump into the video side of things? And it took years to kind of like finalize what that would look like. I toyed with the ideas of doing YouTube, but you know, with all the other work I was doing, I was always so busy. It was always something that I kind of kept in the back burner. And basically it took, you know, up until 2023, last year, to kind of get going on that. But that first Retro Car Kings show that I got to work on really did kind of light that fuse in the back of my mind and kind of like prepared me for things that were to come. So happy that I got to do it. So happy that Discovery Japan gave me the opportunity. And, you know, 12 years later, here I am, 100,000 subscribers on YouTube in the first year. So stoked about that. And it just goes to prove, if you chronicle the car culture here in Japan, and of course other countries, I do travel to a lot of, you know, Southeast Asian countries and around the world. If you chronicle it in kind of the way that you feel comfortable with, and kind of allow the creators of these cars and the cars themselves to speak rather than you being in people's faces, I think, you know, there's definitely an audience for that. So, you know, with that, again, a massive thank you to everybody that has subscribed and checks out my videos regularly. I hope you continue to do so. I have, you know, so many shops that I need to bring you from Japan and around the world. This is just the beginning. So as it comes to, you know, talking about opportunities, I think one of the best experiences of my life was kind of being approached by Pagani. I had visited Pagani back in 2012 with Rod Chong from Speed Hunters. We got welcomed in a way that, you know, to this day is just humbling. Horacio Pagani opened up his doors and showed us every step of the way of how his cars are being built. At the time, of course, the Huayra was a brand new car that they had presented. And on our second day of the visit, they actually rented a local circuit in Modena and allowed us to just go crazy with a Huayra and just drive it around the track like it was just, you know, a regular, you know, tuned JDM car. And the relationship really remained there, not only with Mr. Pagani, but also the guys behind Pagani. There were some amazing people that were working at the company at the time. And fast forward a few years, I got contacted when I wanted to push the brand a little bit more in Asia. Not that they weren't selling, but they wanted to have content and recognition out there. They kind of had this thing where people were like, you know, everybody appreciates Pagani, but if you ask a young kid what is a Pagani, a lot of them weren't kind of aware of what it was or didn't have a good idea. So they really wanted to kind of work on promoting the brand more, and with that, you know, allowing the brand to grow even more in Asian countries. So I worked with them for a good 3 years here in Japan. We organized one of the Radunos here. It was called the Toge Run. Basically, I got to select all the roads and took some amazing clients that flew their cars in from various countries on some memorable excursions here in Japan, including basically breaking the internet with one of the coolest Tatsumi PA meet that we ever did, including even stopping a couple of cars in the middle of Hachiko and in Shinjuku. It was an amazing time. I'll never forget it. And again, it's kind of a great reminder of, you know, if you just follow your path and do the work that you love, you will always have opportunities that come and meet you. People will come and find you, and hopefully you get to experience that and, you know, bring your work to a new level. That said, again, I just want to thank everybody for the great support on YouTube and the continuous following that everybody has, you know, shown me. I'm just about to take the next step and do some merch. As you can tell, I'm wearing the Dino DC hat and a Dino DC shirt with a little picture in the back. We're going to be working on bringing an online shop in the next couple of weeks. So, we'll definitely announce it on the channel when we can do some pre-orders. It's going to be a couple of t-shirt designs, a hoodie, one of these caps, and some stickers. So look out for that. That's definitely step number 2 for me after hitting the 100K mark. And I just wanted to finish up this video by answering some questions. So earlier on today, I went on Instagram and I kind of asked you guys to ask me anything. So I'm just going to end up with a few answers to the questions that you've asked and posted today. I'll just go ahead and read them. So give me a second here. Right, so I'm just going to go in order. There are, oh God, there's a few here. So I'm just going to select some of these and give you some answers. So, am I coming to IMX again this October? So this is one of the Indonesian shows that I visited for the first time last year. I don't know. If they invite me, I'll definitely be there. Now that I've lived in Japan, would you ever consider living back in a manic country like the US and UK? Of course, if the opportunity is there, to do some work and kind of progress what I've started here in Japan, absolutely. Anywhere. I don't need to be specific with any country. US would be sick though. Any favorite livery from JGTC cars from the old days? That's really interesting because I was lucky enough to cover the last few years of JGTC before it transitioned to Super GT. There was a massive demand for GT500, GT300 coverage, and I got to do a couple of years following most of the rounds around Japan. And my favorite, of course, is the Penzo R33 and R34 GTRs. What camera do I use? I already touched on this earlier on. I've been a Canon guy for so many years, but this year I made the transition back to Sony. I'm using a Sony Alpha 7 IV. How do you see the future for Speed Hunters? I think Speed Hunters has the ability to basically continue what it's been doing since 2008. I think it's one of those blogs that, hasn't done anything different, but at the same time doesn't need to, because there's some lovers of, content that just love to be stuck for a few minutes reading a story and going through pictures. I think Speed Hunters should continue doing what it's done for so many years, possibly kind of change the design a little bit. I would love to see a redesign of the site coming soon, bring back merch, and maybe do some video. What are your tips for someone who wants to stay and live in Japan and enjoy car life? Well, like any country, you need to figure out a way to get yourself here. So obviously you need a job that will provide you a visa. Once that is settled, you're free to roam the country and find car culture in all its various places. How did your photography journey start? Are you satisfied with your current skill? So like I mentioned, my photography journey started because I needed photography to go along with the stories that I was writing initially. And of course, there is always space for growth. I think even just changing a completely different type of camera has really pushed me to try different things and take full advantage of the ability that Sonys have to see in the dark these days. I was using older Canons before, and that was always a challenge. So I think there's always space for you to grow, and I'll definitely try to experiment more with night photography in the future. Don't want to put you on the spot, but the most unique car shop you've ever been to? Unique, I mean, there's so many here in Japan. I think over the last couple of years, having spent some time with Eiding Power, I think has really kind of probably become my favorite shop. Not only do they bring that Japanese way and approach of doing things, but they do it to some of the craziest cars out there, BMWs, Ferraris. It kind of reminds me, we need to visit Eiding Power again, because I know they're always working on crazy stuff and there's always so much to cover there. Will you come to Australia? Hell yeah. How do you keep yourself motivated on creating content while still standing out? So that's very difficult, and especially if you're an emerging photographer these days, it's very difficult to come up with a style that gets noticed. There's so many people shooting and creating content. You just have to find your way. You just have to find a way that not only emphasizes what you're shooting, but does so in a very unique or slightly different approach. I think standing out is the most important part. You just got to find out the way that works for you. Top 5 important things to consider when being a guest in Japan. So we're in a bit of a over tourism period here in Japan. Ever since COVID ended, Japan has just been overwhelmed by tourists. And I think when you do come to Japan, you really have to realize that there are very specific rules, and the locals really need for these rules to be followed and adhered to, and just not upset, the general population here. We've seen instances of people, upsetting, the locals in so many ways. For car culture in particular, people jumping the wall at Daikoku, PA, and upsetting the locals. I think basically be polite, don't break rules, don't think it's your own country. If it works in your country, it doesn't really mean that it works in Japan. Be respectful, and just basically be a nice person, be polite, be kind, thank people, and just basically follow the rules and regulations. It's not, crazy things that we need to do here. Basically, don't be an ass. Are there any shops in Japan who work on RXs that you could document? Oh, there's so many. We've done Pan Speed, and the first shop that Amemiya set up here in Tokyo. Of course, there's the main Ari Amemiya shop in Narita in Shiba, Fujita Engineering. There's so many that I need to hit up. Like I said, hitting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube has only reminded me that there's so much more that we need to cover here in Japan and that I need to bring you. So many shops to add to the list, and of course lots of rotary shops. I have a Celica ZZ T231 automatic. What body kit and wheels are the best for that car? I'm not really sure about body kits. I'm not really a great fan of kind of meddling on stuff like that. Basically keep it simple, maybe add a lip spoiler at the front, lower the car on some nice wheels. T37s are always my favorite, C28s. They have the new version coming out in so many sizes, so that's something to think about. The best show you got to go so far? Oh my god. And there's so many, but number one will always have to be Tokyo Auto Salon. It just defines what Japanese tuning culture and the tuning scene is all about. And they've done such a great job over the years kind of maintaining that vibe, and basically it's unbeatable on so many levels. Of course, SEMA Show is amazing, but Tokyo Auto Salon I think wins just because it's so Japanese. How do you feel and what do you think about Nissan ending the GTR R35 GTR? It's about time. I mean, the car came out in 2007. I think they've really been pushing their luck, keeping the car going for so many years. I think the last few years have been kind of too much of a push, honestly. Just refining grills and adding little updates here and there to kind of keep it fresh just made it feel a little bit older than it needs to be. I think Nissan really needs to embrace the fact that the GTR defines so much for that brand, and they really need to come out with a car that's a worthy successor, but never forgetting where the GTR came from. So while the R35 was an amazing car, to this day very capable and extremely tunable, they should never forget what the second generation of the GTRs like the R32, 33, 34 were all about, what they brought to the table, and of course where the GTR brand comes from. So the Hakosuka, Kenmeri, just basically bringing the essence of all three generations across to whatever is coming next. I'm not sure if it's going to be electric. I hope they really do make a U-turn on that. A lot of manufacturers are going back and kind of changing their mind when it comes to kind of EV and the future of EV. I think it's far too early for that. Let's stick to what makes fast cars, fun, and that's ICE engines. Is the Speed Hunter store going back? Not that I know. What was the first car you ever fell in love with? Ferrari F40. Actually, I lied. There's so many. I mean, I got my kind of first taste of motorsport at a very young age, probably like 2 or 3 years old, when my parents used to take me to local hill climb races up in Italy, in the little mountains that were very close to us in northeast Italy, and I got to see some incredible prototypes. I probably fell in love with cars I didn't even know what they were at the time. But my true first love definitely has to be the Ferrari F40. I think it's a car that really basically marks the end of a very important era for Ferrari, and it's an incredible machine in every way and form, beautifully analog, a beautiful design, and the story how the car came to be, how few people were involved in the project, makes it even more special. So yeah, definitely Ferrari F40. Let's see, my god, there's so many. Can you cover some more old iconic Hondas? Yeah, absolutely. I'm always looking to cover more stuff. As you notice, we just did the Honda collection at Twin Ring Motegi, which was a bit of a disappointment, having seen that they went for a more corporate feel. But that aside, there's a lot of Honda shops that I want to cover in the Kansai area, so Osaka and Kobe, so you can expect a lot more on that. Best spots to see cars in Japan apart from Daikoku PA. That's become a bit of a difficult one now because of course they're closing, but my go-to is of course Umi Hotaru PA. After everything closes in Tokyo and Yokohama, you head over there and you're bound to find something. It's a bit of a trek because it's kind of halfway across the Aqualine, but it's worth the visit, and of course even if it rains you're covered, so it's the perfect meeting spot. Okay, so I think I will end the video there. I hope you enjoyed kind of hearing me have a little think back at where I started and how this all came to be. Dino DC is going to continue and basically bring you more content from Japan and all around the world. I've just come back from Houston, Texas, so expect to see more stuff from the States, as well as some more content from Malaysia, and of course Japan, the place I'm based out of and the true fuel to my passion. There's a lot more coming also on the project car side of things, so basically subscribe, make sure you check back soon for content. There's videos coming every week, and again, a massive thank you to everybody that has allowed me to reach this first 100K hurdle. Thank you so much.